Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I hope you are having a great day. Today's story includes relationship problems, toxic parents, codependency, denial, emotional damage, and parental manipulation. Be aware. Am I the idiot for missing an actual emergency because I turned off my phone to avoid my wife's unnecessary contact attempts during my tech-free weekend? My best friend, 31 male, and I, 27 male, have a tradition of taking a yearly weekend trip together that's phone-free. We've been doing this for a decade now. These weekend trips consist of us staying in a suite and exploring the city, not traversing the wilderness, so it's not like we're completely disconnected. Still, we like to keep one on hand for navigation and emergency purposes, and it would usually be friend's phone that we brought along. Friend and I left for our trip this year 2 Fridays ago to make use of the long weekend. This was the first time I've gone one of these trips since my wife and I moved in together, got engaged, or got married. However, we were dating for the last 2 years worth of trips, 2021 and 2022, and she seemed fine during that time. I would just tell her I was going to be busy for the weekend and she'd leave me alone. I understand that there are different expectations once you get married, but I didn't expect for the 180 in behavior. My wife all but demanded I take my phone as well in case she needed to get a hold of me despite her having friend's number. I let her know I had arrived, and immediately after that she was texting me and asking me how things were. Then again, asking me another question when I didn't respond to the first one. I eventually muted our text conversation because I was sick of the phone buzzing. She called me a few hours later and asked why I wasn't responding to her texts. I reiterated that this was supposed to be a no-phone weekend and kept the call short despite her trying to drag out the conversation. She called me once more after this. When I answered and found out it wasn't an emergency, I simply turned off my phone. The calls then started coming in from my friend and he followed suit. We spent the rest of the weekend with our phones off until the drive back on Monday. I called my wife and informed her when we were about 30 minutes away from my place, and she was furious. She said that there ended up being an emergency, her sister got into a car accident that won't affect her long term, but still resulted in broken bones, and that I had just ignored her the entire time when she needed me. I told her that I was very sorry to hear about her sister, but it wasn't my fault. She had essentially forced my hand into cutting off means of communication. She went to stay with a friend before I arrived home that night and has since came home, but she's still fuming. Am I the idiot? Edit, I'm politely asking everyone to stop making harmful accusations about my friend and the nature of our relationship when we were younger. It's making me uncomfortable, and not in the I'm having an epiphany way you guys are hoping, but in the you're jumping to incredibly crude conclusions about someone I love and trust based on a tiny snippet into our life. Edit 2, thank you for all the kind messages. I just checked them expecting more anger but instead have found lots of compassion. I appreciate that so much. I understand wanting time for yourself, to disconnect from everything and everyone, and get away from technology or at least your phone. And I don't think OP is the idiot for wanting that, but I also don't know if I can say that the OP's wife is the idiot for wanting a way to contact her husband in cases of emergency, as it ended up being the case. The no phones rule made sense, since OP was addicted to his phone, and probably had this constant need to stay connected, but now, the rule may exist, but it's not actually necessary. And also, why is that only OP's friend has his phone? Why don't they take turns on which phone is available? One trip is the friend's and another OP's phone? Or why not one day OP's phone is on and the friend's is off? Also, could it be that in the past, in one of these trips, or all of them, OP's wife would call and the friend would ignore her calls? Could this be the reason she insisted so much on OP to take his own cell phone? I have no idea how OP and his wife's relationship is like, but it seems like she's not that happy with these trips. And what did you guys think of this situation? Now let's read the info that OP left in the comments. These trips started back when I was 17, and a very phone-obsessed teenager. Friend made the rule of, I'll go on this trip with you if you agree to leave your phone at home. I was much better about not having my phone in my hand constantly by the time the next year rolled around, but I liked the kind of off-the-grid feeling it gave the trips, despite us being in cities. At the time, I think it made me feel older than I was, not having to constantly text my mom, letting her know I had made it back to the hotel at night or whatever, so I kept the rule going. Now it's a tradition of ours, and it's nice to make it a point to steer clear of social media or any outside contact, so we can just be together like we're 17 and 21 again. But you're not 17 and 21 again, you're 27, and newly married. You say that your wife was okay with it in the past, but it also sounds like you didn't really check with her so much, as announced that you'd be away. You're right, I didn't check with her because I have been going on this trip for much longer than I've known her. This is something that's non-negotiable for me, and something I didn't think would be an issue based on her past reactions to it. Why was a 21-year-old hanging out with a 17-year-old anyway? You're adults with adult relationships and responsibilities. Are you going to take off like this when you have kids? I don't think it's strange to have older or younger friends. I met him when I was a freshman in high school and we took this trip when I was a senior. And I'd like to think I'll be able to take one weekend for myself per year as I get older, yes. Do you ever take her on trips and completely unplug from the world? We don't often go on trips together, and never have done a tech-free one. She's pretty plugged into the social media world, and any trip we've taken has consisted of getting photos for Instagram, lol. I've done the trip twice while we were dating, and nope. She left me alone during weekend trips before. I'm fine with her being able to contact me during the weekend, just not incessantly. There's no reason for me to receive multiple texts or calls within a couple hours if nothing major is happening. Kids are probably still a few years down the line, if we're having any at all, but I'd like to think that he and I could still have some alone time if that day comes. She's accused friend and I of being codependent before, so this behavior from her is completely out of left field, and also very hypocritical. Friend is male. You probably shouldn't be married, just because you both seem self-involved. Do you even like each other? We do like each other, it's just difficult for me to empathize in this particular situation. Especially when she's gotten annoyed at me before for keeping in contact with my friend in the past during regular days, not tech-free ones. Really? I've never thought of it as being unusual, but a few other people have mentioned it too. He and I lived together from the time I was 18 until I was 24. Some people might not think it was purely platonic, but I wouldn't say anything explicitly sexual happened. 17 and 21 are unusual best friend ages. Has your relationship with your friend always been platonic? I think the people who are taking that comment as some sort of red flag are misconstruing what I mean. I'm not sure if you've ever lived with someone for an extended period of time before, but things can be intimate and not purely platonic without crossing over into something sexual. Sharing your life and a home with someone for 5 years can lead to your lives intersecting in a lot of ways you didn't initially prepare for. It's just real life, and in real life, people and situations are usually a lot more nuanced than what can be demonstrated through a 3,000-word explanation on a subreddit. That doesn't mean my wife has anything to be insecure over, or that it holds any weight in the current situation. Actually, I may think it does. He isn't married, no. He's friendly with my wife, but he lives about an hour away from me now. If we're hanging out, I'll drive to his apartment since I don't want to put my wife out by inviting a guest in. She's one of those, this place has to be spotless before anyone can see it, types. They know each other and chat when together, but I wouldn't call them friends. The codependent comment accusations came from, ironically, another phone-related incident where I had to step out and take his call while out at dinner with my parents. She considered it a mortal sin of mine to leave her alone with my family for a while. It feels very strange to plaster his business online, even anonymously. He's never introduced me to anyone he's dated, or mentioned anyone to me besides expressing passing interest. During the time we were living together, it didn't strike me as odd because we were just focused on other things. It still doesn't strike me as odd now because we're both adults with careers and sometimes dating life isn't for everyone. We were broke college/post-grad students. We were living the one-bedroom apartment life. Some people consider sharing a bedroom a non-platonic thing to do, which is something we did. It's all based on your boundaries. I think the easy familiarity and intimacy that comes with sharing a home and a routine with someone feels inherently deeper than friendship to me. For others, it might not. For some, it might be a deal breaker altogether. Does that answer your question? We shared a bed when we lived together, and because of the close quarters we lived in, we shared a routine. A lot of the little traditions we have with people, even something as simple as setting aside a specific time every week to watch a show with them you don't watch with anyone else, or dinner-making rituals you might have, bond us together more deeply than we might anticipate. Intentionally making space for someone in your life is impactful. Okay, this little detail about sharing a bed with a friend when they live together, in addition to the codependency between them, could be a big reason for OP's wife's behavior now. Now let's read the comments and see what they say. Oh, and I hope you are enjoying the video so far. If so, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications to know when a new video is out. Everyone sucks here. I have the odd feeling that she almost wanted there to be an actual emergency so she could feel justified in bothering, and might have created one if it didn't occur naturally. She desperately doesn't want you away from her. You'll need to have a serious conversation about that. Edit, apparently OP buried some key details in comments too, so it sounds like his wife needs to have a serious conversation with him as well. Edit 2, forgot to change the judgment. While I believe strongly in tech-free time, this isn't what this post is about. She didn't handle it the best though, honestly should have been handled before the trip took place, so she's still included. I had a similar thought that she was sabotaging the tech-free weekend. If friend can't relax because he's fielding texts, then OP can't relax either, and it's a win for her. She sounds awfully insecure and exhausting. OP reveals in other comments that he basically has a nuanced sexual relationship with his buddy that they revisit once a year. OP was not telling the whole story. Definitely you are the idiot. I started reading the post and it was clingy wife and maybe just use location services, schedule a talk time, but this was a romantic partner for years. How did you even marry this poor girl? You should really do her a favor and divorce her so she can have a life with someone who will cherish her. Info, is your friend single? Is he gay? Your comment that nothing explicitly sexual happened when you lived together is clearly being missed by 90% of the not the idiot comments here. Sounds like your wife is insecure about your friendship, and your post/responses don't seem to show any empathy for those insecurities despite identifying a pretty major red flag in your above response. I was all ready to say not the idiot until I read the comments where you and your friend were much more involved with one another than a regular friendship or roommate situation. Of course your wife is feeling insecure about this. Are you saying if she decided that she and an ex were platonic now and she wanted to go off gallivanting with them for a weekend without contacting you that you'd be cool with it? Either your answer is yes or you're a total hypocrite here. You're off on a weekend getaway with an old flame that you have had not platonic but not explicitly sexual relations with, shutting off your phone so your wife can't contact you. Hell, I'm surprised she married you when you went on these prior trips. Hopefully she'll be smart enough that she won't be married to you before your next one. You are the idiot for your very obvious affair at this point. And basically this comment pretty much sums up what most people in the comments think. My guy, you buried the lead on this for 4 hours. You shared an apartment and a bed with your male, quote, friend for 5 years. Coincidentally, that year began immediately after the first of these annual trips. I'm assuming this is real, but the Brokeback analogies are strong and the coyness raises my spidey sense. If this had been a platonic relationship/roommate thing, you would have had bunks a la stepbrothers, leaving the garage available for karate, or one of you would have converted the living room into a makeshift bedroom. An 18 and 22-year-old dude pair would want space to bring home a partner, even a hookup, unless their partner was at home. This was an unquestionably intimate, although not necessarily sexual, relationship that you've maintained in some form or fashion for a decade. To top it off, you take a special vacation every year. Whether you admit it or not, I'm sure you show not so subtle preference for your friend in 1,000 ways, including your willingness to take phone calls at inappropriate times, and your insistence on taking a phone-free getaway. You claim your wife wouldn't want these things, but it's unlikely you ever asked. You implied that you went from casual dating to married and living together in the space between the 2022 trip and 2023 trip. That's a lot of relationship steps in 365 days. I can only imagine that there was an ultimatum of sorts, from either your wife or parents, or some other threat that your world would be upended. Be honest with yourself and your wife. Even if you don't love your friend in a romantic way, you don't value your marriage. Unless it isn't abundantly clear, you are the idiot. Edit, I originally read that they were poor college kids and roomies for a year. 5 years. They shared a bed for 5 years. I've updated above and doubled down on my assessment. OP, you are the idiot. Massive idiot, and willfully ignorant of the active harm you're causing your wife. I believe the consensus is that OP is the idiot, and that he and wife should reevaluate their marriage. But especially, OP needs to understand how he really feels about this friend, and how much he really fits into his life, and admit how their relationship affects his marriage. OP needs to figure it out. And what did you guys think of this situation? What advice would you give OP? What about his wife? What would you say to her? What about his relationship with, quote, friend? What do you think about this? Don't forget to leave your comments down below. And that's it for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time.